guys, welcome back. In this video we are looking at Wildflowers by Tom Petty. Awesome song, great one to learn. We've got some altered chords, if you will, but it's one of these where you have altered chords but it just kind of works out for the left hand to make it, in some respects, a little bit easier. The song is in swing feel and capo on 5, and I highly recommend doing that because it's going to be a lot easier to grab these shapes in this position as opposed to doing it over here and kind of getting some of these little tricks that are going on in the left hand to function a little bit smoother. But we'll look at it in a more simple manner initially and then kind of add the little left hand tricks to it. So let's jump right in here. Let's go through our chords as we always do. We're going to have an F add 9. So that is string 4 fret 3 relative to the capo, string 3 fret 2, string 2 fret 1, and string 1 fret 3. So 4-string chord there. Now we're going to go to C, but we're going to leave the pinky on here and just move these guys up. So we got our standard C chord right there, leaving the pinky on string 1 fret 3, which we're doing throughout this whole verse progression. So we've got that high note on top. So C chord, and then jump to a G chord, leaving the pinky on, third finger on string 6 fret 3, fingers 1 and 2 are off. And you know, I'd say probably the majority of time this is the fingering that I use for G, just because it's easiest to get in and out of. So even if that feels a little uncomfortable, you're going to be kind of forced maybe a little bit here to use these fingers. I'd recommend that and kind of develop some comfort there, develop some flexibility, some dexterity until it starts to feel familiar and be intuitive, because you're going to make heavy use of that. It just makes a lot of other songs, probably will make a lot of other songs you already play feel easier because of that fingering. You don't have to turn that hand around so much. The only other chords that we have to worry about are A minor, standard A minor there. Then we've got a D over F sharp chord, so this is an inverted chord. So I've got string 6, fret 2, string 5 is muted because of my index finger. If you play it open, it will be fine, but I'm muting it. String 4, open, string 3 fret 2, and my pinky is on string 2 fret 3, string 1 is muted. D over F sharp or D slash F sharp is how you will see that written and sometimes heard to. You will hear it referred to as that. And so this is all happening, those two chords are coming in the bridge or interlude, however you want to think of it. So there is a G chord that we end on, and I use that same fingering, but my pinky is on string 2 fret 3. And so when you listen to the recording, you're going to hear that G chord being strummed, and then you're going to hear an open E pop in there sometimes. So when you go back and look at the little playthrough that I did at the beginning, you might see my hand kind of jut in and out as I'm playing that. That's what I'm doing. I'm muting it and then taking the mute off, which is happening over here in my kind of the palm of my hand, base of the index finger, and then I just kind of pop off of it there. So it's the same chord basically, right? But you want to listen for that one little detail there. Otherwise, if we don't include that, it's just a standard old G chord. Okay, so let's talk briefly about swing feel. I don't want to get into a whole separate lesson about that. I do have videos talking about swing feel, so please consult that if you are unfamiliar with it, or maybe the little bit that I talked about it here will be enough. So I'm just going to grab our first chord that we're going to run into, F add 9 chord. So the pattern, the strum pattern that I'm using for the most part is going to be down, 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 up, down. Right? That's 4 beats. Down, 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 up, down. So I'm going to play that swing feel, which means uneven eighth notes, and there's more specificity to that, but I just want you to hear it in this case, and then I'll play it with even eighth notes. So. Even eighth note, sorry. That might be a little subtle to hear because we're really only strumming down up in one instance. So I'm going to do all eighth notes so we have that constant comparison. Swing. It's kind of like lazy. It's got a hop along feel. It's long on the down, short on the up. Long, short, long, short, long, short. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and verses 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the down strum is getting more time than the up strum, hence the uneven playing, because normal eighth notes, they share the same amount of time. So just think long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. All right, so the only time that, a couple times that strum pattern is going to change. The bridge is one of them, and it's a slight change. And then there's one little kind of filler chord that ends the verse and either goes into another verse or into the bridge. So I'll point that out when we get to it, but when we get to both of those. So let's just go through the main chord progression. This is what you're going to be playing the majority of the time, is going to be that pattern down, 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 up, down, F, C, G, C. Okay? Instances in the song where you'll hear him hang on the G chord. He doesn't go back to the C, so that would be F, C, G, stay on the G, and jump back to F. So that happens, I think, in two spots in the song, and you should be able to hear that, and that would be just a good thing to train your ears with. You know, I'm pointing it out. Go listen for it, see if you can spot it. It'll be a little test for you. So I was deliberately strumming through that a little heavy, just so we're hearing every strum and making sure that we're hearing the rhythm and just doing it slowly. But I'm going to recommend a little process here, sequential process in terms of getting the strum pattern down and getting the groove and the feel of it. So first thing I would say would be to speed it up a little bit. The next thing we're going to talk about is pick work. And then after that, we'll add the little techniques in the left hand. So if we speed that up a little bit. Once you get a little bit of speed working there, as you're moving quicker through the strumming, you want to just think lighter as well, and where you're putting accent, where you're putting emphasis in terms of your strum. So if you go back and listen to the way that I'm playing it at the beginning, you'll pick some of that up. So the way that I pick that up and kind of hear it myself is heavy on that first strum and then very light on the next two. I'm just barely nicking the strings, or at least that's what I'm aiming for. And then on the up and the last down in particular, thinking heavier. So now we have some dynamics in our strum pattern, right? We're not just doing this, which is okay, but we can step it up a little bit and go heavy, soft, soft. That up is naturally going to be brighter because we're catching that first couple strings, and heavy on the last down. So let's do that slowly, and then I'll speed it up. Faster than the song there, but that is a fantastic thing to work on in the right hand. That pick control is going to do a lot for you. One, you're learning how to use your right hand in various ways through the pick, and I think indirectly is going to help with just being able to locate strings more easily. If you can do this with a chord, then being able to kind of like pick arpeggios or play single note lines, whatever it is, it's going to be easier. That'll assist in that process as well. Another thing I recommend doing is playing around with what pick you're using. I'm using a very thin pick here, probably like 0.5, 0.46. Yeah, 0.46. Very thin. And just gives you a different sound. Use something that's too thick and it can be difficult to manage some of this stuff. There's other ways of going about it. You could like kind of play a little bit more over the neck if you want, because there's going to be a little bit more flexibility in the strings. But I highly recommend experimenting with picks regardless of what you're working on, because you never know if the pick that you're using is holding you back unless you experiment, right? And that can certainly be the case. Some people using too thin of a pick all the time or too thick of a pick, and just kind of depends on what sound you're trying to get. So go buy a variety pack, play the same thing with a few different picks, and just kind of do that for a week or two and see if you come out with some different results. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about with the strum pattern and getting these various sounds is things that we can do with the left hand. So I'm going to point them out and not suggest that you do it one particular way. I just want you to play around with them. I'm sure just dealing with swing feel and getting the chord changes and the pattern happening all together is going to be enough of a challenge, but you can just add these in piece by piece as you get more comfortable. So you're going to hear at the very start of the song, the first thing you hear is a hammer-on with that middle finger from string 3 open to the 2nd fret, right? So that's something that you can do with the F chord as you're strumming along. Or because we're moving fingers 2 and 3, you could hammer both of those on. And it's a quick little gesture. You don't want it to be taking too long because it's going to sound a little weird, especially if you have that 4th string open. But you can also practice it to where you get your 3rd finger in position and then make the middle finger be the last one that comes down. But in any case, that middle finger hammer-on is what you can do on the F chord. On the C chord, same thing, middle finger. Nothing else changes in the strum pattern. The right hand's doing the same thing. on creating that clearance in the left hand to make sure that that sounds out. Don't dip that ring finger down and mute that string. So there's some details to work on there with each individual chord. F chord is probably going to be a little bit easier because it's not as big. C, we're stretched out more. So it's a little easier to mute that string. So something to play around with. And then on the G chord, you'll hear this. So that's a pull off. I'm putting my index finger on string 2, fret 1, and strumming up and then doing a pull off. So what's happening there is you're going to strum down, 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 and on the up, put the index finger down and pull off, and don't strum down after that. So that sounds like this. Those are the ornaments that you can add for those chords. I would make that the last thing that you do. I know it sounds cool. Definitely adds an element of interest to the chord progression, but definitely keep it as the last bit to add on with either hand, because the other stuff is more fundamental and going to be more important. You start working on this first and you're kind of going backwards. And that's the way it's going to feel. It's going to be frustrating. And then, okay, we've got a couple other parts to look at. So when we get to the end of I think it's the first, third, and fifth verse. So it's 5 verses, first, third, and fifth verse. I think that's right. You're going to hear a C chord get extended, and he just takes his middle finger off of the 4th string and strums it and then brings it back on. So that's going to sound something like this. I wouldn't worry too much about being absolutely 100% linked up with every single strum that he has in there. It's just an effect, right? Just kind of hanging on the C chord, lifting that middle finger off, and then hammering it back on. So if I put that in the context of a verse, I'm just going to go through the last chord progression, F to C to G to C, and then add that portion so you can hear it in context. I'm getting a little bit more active, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and just trying to emphasize those kind of inside strings. A little bit more up to tempo. Okay, so let's take a look at the bridge. So this is where we're going to run into A minor and D over F sharp. Might take a little bit of work if you haven't played it before. So the pattern changes slightly here. We go on the first 4 chords, down, down, up for each chord. So F, down, down, up, C, down, down, up, A minor, down, down, up, D over F sharp, same thing. And then G back to the original pattern. But the thing you're hearing that I'm doing there is what I mentioned earlier. I'm taking my hand away to make sure that the open E is available to ring on the up strum. So down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. We do that twice, and then we go back to F, add 9, A minor, the whole bridge. add it in later. I'm sure it will feel awkward if you haven't used this fingering before. Just maybe getting the muting is weird, or taking the hand away. It's just kind of a funky position to be in. So a little bit faster through the bridge. A little bit more tempo. I'll go through it twice here. That is where the song ends the second time that bridge comes around. That is everything, guys. Like I said, leave the left hand trickery, leave that out till you're feeling comfortable with everything else. Majority of the tune is F, C, G, C. Just F, C, G, C over and over again. You get that, and you got the strum pattern with swing feel and the little accents that we talked about. It's going to sound like the tune. It's going to sound just like it. Then you can get these other little bits in here with the hammer-on pull-off stuff. Make sure you listen to the track plenty. Play along with it as well, to listen for when he's hanging on to the G chord or when he's playing that C chord after wrapping up a verse. So use those ears, work bit by bit, little pieces at a time, and let me know if you have any questions. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.